Can
can't
anybody?
see anything
I
in the
can't either.
Facebook group.
And it's supposed to be working. Ooh, look,
Um,
we are streaming on YouTube. There's a win.
okay, this is good. Okay, we're
Oh my goodness. This is something.
at least we're somewhere. Oh my goodness. Maybe like the universe is just telling all of us to go back to bed.
Maybe. I mean, I'll drink a glass. I told my wife, like, she was out downstairs working out and I was spotting a couple of her lifts. And I said, like, I could go back to bed right now. I'm not even particularly tired. I just was like, I could just go back to bed. I would be fine
Yeah.
just like laying there all day, like reading and whatever.
And today's one of those days, I think. And like we were saying before we got on, I'm like, I feel incredibly productive today, but I'm like very suspicious of the fact that I feel incredibly productive today.
Yep, yep. And I know exactly what you mean too. Like I've had those days where you wake up and you're like, you have all this energy and you're like, oh, I'm gonna get everything done. And I'm like, this doesn't feel right. Something's wrong. Like I'm not normally feeling this amazing.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. There's like this inherent suspiciousness. All right.
Uh,
So, oh,
Nicole
look.
just texted me a screenshot of the fact that Facebook is giving her an error on loading.
Okay. Well, I am glad then that we are doing this on YouTube. So I'm just going to repost this link onto into the chat on. I found the stream on Facebook, but it's shit in the bed. So we're on YouTube today, and I'm posting that link onto Facebook right now.
Awesome.
I should type words. Let's see. Since Facebook is shitting the bed today. That's one of my favorite expressions, by the way, is shitting the bed. I don't know why. It just makes me giggle.
It's a pretty good one. Because you think of like, all I can think of is my daughter taking off her diaper and like throwing it around everywhere.
Okay, let me point Drew over to there as well. Just make sure everybody's get it, got it, gets it, got it.
Get it, got it. Yeah, stupid Facebook today.
Yeah. Alrighty.
I wonder
Okay.
what's going on.
I mean, I'm guessing their content delivery network, their CDN servers that serve up all the garbage that we all, scroll to look at, are just offline or something today. So,
Yeah.
yeah. All right. So we'll do this on YouTube. What are we talking about today? I mean, this has been a fun little intro, right?
Oh man.
This is actually kind of a perfect lead into today's topic anyway,
Right?
right?
So we figured we'd talk about stress because no one ever talks about it, and like we all pretend like everything's great and we don't need to drink at 9, 10 in the morning. And I think it doesn't matter how much money you make. Like I don't think it matters like what stage of life you're in, if you feel like you made it or you haven't. Like there are stressors everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And especially I think they really affect creatives and people who work for themselves from home because not only do we feel like we have to work all the time and like we've talked about this before, like our brains don't shut off,
Mm-hmm.
but we also have all the other responsibilities of like being a work from home or quote unquote like stay at home individual because our society, even though now it's like so much more prone to like people working from home, we still see those people as like, oh, you have all this flexibility of working from home.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think the stress of it is like monumental.
Right.
And
Right.
we need to address that and talk about that because we have so many people who, develop major depression, major anxiety because they feel like they shouldn't be stressed because they work from home.
Right, right. Yeah, there's this perception that, and you've talked about this before, and this is very true. When you see whatever you see on YouTube or Facebook or Instagram or whatever, people are putting their best foot forward. They're showing the things that they want you to see, and it's not like nobody in the world talks about this, obviously, but more often than not, the presentation that we're given on social media is that, oh my God, my life is amazing, my world is amazing, my business is amazing,
Right.
I have a totally carefree life, I get up in the morning, I drink wine all day, I spend 2 seconds working on my business, I make $1 bajillion, and life is
Exactly.
right. And it's like it's not like that at all. Like I was super fucking stressed out on Monday.
You and me both.
Yeah, it was just like, and it wasn't anything particular. Like for me, it is that I'm a bit behind on my production, because we took that trip to Arkansas, and in doing so, instead of getting ahead, I ended up going behind. Which, you know what, it happens, right? Like whatever.
Right.
But I'm trying to get caught up and get ahead because I want to plan out my YouTube content better than I am, and I'm making steps in that direction. But it was just like Monday. It felt like everything like landed in my mind all at once, and I literally wanted to burn it all down to the ground. I
Yep.
was like, fuck this. I'm gonna go get a job. I don't need this kind of stress in my life.
Oh, I didn't even have that thought. On Monday, I was like, I'm going back to bed and I'm not waking up. And the next time I open my eyes, I better be on the beach somewhere.
Right? Oh my God, right? Ah,
It it was Monday was a rough day, and I think I actually talked to a couple other people who like had the same thing. Like, holy crap,
right,
Monday is just like kicking our butts.
right.
And I think it's like really healthy one to have those days and to recognize them. And the stress is our body's way of telling us that like we need to slow down.
Right, right.
Um, and so I think that having those days and recognizing them and then doing something about it, not just ignoring it, not, you know, wallowing in a pity party. It's fine to have a pity party for a little bit, but then,
Yeah,
get over it. And I
right.
know I texted you and I was like, join my pity party.
Right, right. And we basically did have like a little text message pity party, which helped us both get through it.
Right.
You
So
know?
I think having some way to relieve that stress and know that it's okay to be stressed, that like it
Mm-hmm.
is normal, like we all struggle. And like I said in the initial post, it's like it doesn't matter like how much money I've made. I still stress about things. I am still stressing about keeping up with clients. I'm still stressing about marketing. I'm still stressing like the reality of it is I could make, $10,000 one month and then the next month have no money coming in if I didn't market myself correctly, if I'm not constantly working. And that I think is the biggest stressor. If you have a 9 to 5 job, not saying you don't have any other stressors, but you are guaranteed a paycheck
Mm-hmm.
every month. Whether you like the amount of that paycheck or not, that's a whole different story, but you are
Right, right.
guaranteed. So you can actually plan. And I think what triggered my stress was I paid my bills on Monday because it was the first.
Mm.
And when I looked at those numbers, I was like, oh my God, like our expenses every month are close to $10,000
Mm-hmm.
just to like survive.
Right, right. That's like your baseline. Yep, yep.
Right. Um, and I think if those things don't trigger stress, then like we're probably sociopaths and like don't have any like understanding of what's going on. Or, you're just so like mm, well, I don't know what the right word is. Well,
Adjusted. I don't think that's a good
adjusted,
word, but
right?
I don't think that's a fair word though, because that makes it seem like having that kind of stress is not okay or not normal.
Right.
Um, and certainly people can end up in situations where they don't have money stress, as an example, right? But there are still
Right.
different stressors in people's lives, right? Like,
Yep.
here's an example. Mark Zuckerberg, right, owns Facebook, very clearly has like no money issues whatsoever, right? I mean,
Right.
the guy's stupid rich. Okay, but I promise you, this guy is dealing with enormous amounts of stress. related to Facebook, the success of Facebook, the problems Facebook causes with, all of the social implications that have been happening
Right.
and the social political aspects of it. Those kinds of things are all stressors, right? So some people might think, oh, like I want to be Mark Zuckerberg, live a totally carefree, money-free life. But right, like
Right.
that guy's probably going to end up looking like a president in how presidents age so fast in
Right.
such a short period of time because of the enormous stress.
Exactly.
Yeah. So a couple of things I wanted to say, and then I want to check in on the comments. Number one, this was an impromptu topic for this week, so we don't have the sort of typical notes and preparation that we normally do. So this will be a bit more of a free-form conversation and might go off the rails a little bit. But we also felt it was an important topic, and we wanted to put it out there in a way that's genuine because so
Right.
often, like you said, people pretend that the stress just doesn't exist and that owning your own business and living a life like this is just nothing but carefree, roses and wine and whatever.
Yep.
Uh, and with that, Drew says that doing two things from home, both my business and working for someone else, there's a ton of stress working from home. And he also said that there was something about this Monday that
Oh my
that
gosh.
was going on in the universe. So very clearly, Monday was just bad for everybody and everything and everyone in the world, or at least us,
Yeah.
our world.
Yeah, there was, I mean, I wonder if it was like a full moon or something like that,
Right?
because
It
it
could have
was
been.
definitely crazy.
Yeah, yeah. And my wife said, and this is something else that can actually be a different kind of stressor. And it's an unfortunate thing, but it's a reality of life and the people that are around you. She said, I've noticed negativity from people that I've known forever once I quit the library and she started helping me with the business. She said, I found myself toning down my happiness around them, but screw that, right?
Right. Yep.
And she goes on to say, I made different decisions in my life than they did, and it led me to a different outcome than theirs. And that's very, very true. But unfortunately, some people just see that they're in a situation that they don't like, and you're in a situation that is different from theirs and is. I don't even know if better is the right word because
It's
everybody
just
is
different.
different. Exactly. It's
Right.
just different. So, let's talk about how we deal with our stress.
Oh man. I mean,
And
I
this is
think,
go ahead.
oh no, you go ahead.
I was just gonna say I'm not sure how many people we have watching since YouTube versus Facebook, but we also we want to know from you. This is very much a conversation and not nearly as much like us dispensing wisdom. So
Right.
we want to know what your stress relief techniques are as well. And this is something that hopefully we can all kind of share together because by sharing these things communally, whether it's on the stream like this or even just like you and I did, Zara, when we were messaging back and forth, doing
Right.
something like that within the group as well is something that I think can help. And again, I think one of the things that people think is that it's not okay to express that kind of negativity or stress or problems on social
Right.
media. Um, I think you
And
can go ahead.
there's a limit, I think. I
Yeah,
think there's a limit. If you're constantly on there and all you're doing is just, you know, complaining and being negative and bringing other people down, then yes, like that's not okay. But it's also not okay to pretend like you have this perfect life and everything is great when in reality you do have stressors, because what that creates is for people who look up to you, for people, and like no matter who you are, whether you have one follower or you have, millions of followers on social media, like you are influencing someone. And so people look at you and they see this perfect life and they try to achieve that because they admire you. But if you're not real with them, you are going to start creating true mental issues for these people. And like it's funny because I was actually talking to my niece yesterday, and it's one of the things that we're talking about, like the younger generation. is like when I went to school and the area where I went to high school, it was very like middle class. Like we didn't have fancy cars. Like if you got a car, we were just like, yay, like let's go to lunch. Can you drive us? Like it was so exciting. But like there is another school in the same school district I went to that we've always, and this is obviously over a decade ago, we would always be like, oh, that's like the posh school. And you would drive onto their parking lot, and no joke, it's all BMWs and Mercedes, and they're all brand new. It was like you were driving onto a dealership. And I could see that the kids there were a lot more stressed than what we were because they're comparing, like, oh, what did daddy buy me? Oh, like, are you wearing a knockoff or are you not? Whereas, like, my generation was very, oh, like, you got a knockoff, cool, where can I get that? and and the difference too with social media, like I didn't know if my friends were hanging out without me until, like, the next day, and they were like, oh, we did this, and I was like, oh, cool, you didn't invite me, and then we got over it and moved on. Whereas now, like, if I'm sick and at home and I'm seeing all of my friends doing all these things because Instagram stories and Snapchat, that also creates this negative mindset. And so if we're constantly pretending that everything is perfect and we have these amazing lives and we have no issues, we're actually doing a disservice to those around us.
Right. Sorry, I was looking at our settings and trying to get our audio set up just a little bit. But yeah, that's such a hard thing to deal with. That's actually a thing that I deal with pretty regularly um, amongst the YouTube community of photographers. And I think I've mentioned this before, but I deliberately like avoid watching. I'm super quiet. Okay, check one. Sorry, these audio settings got a little bit messed up, so I'm trying to get them sorted back out. Um,
Today's a continuation of our Monday, and that's
right?
okay.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. So why did my audio just go down to 0? Um, hello, hello, 1 2 1 2 1 2. Just trying to get my audio sorted out here. Check, 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 check. Check one. Check one. What is happening here? Like,
I
I
don't
didn't
know.
even change my audio. I was just trying to balance yours a little bit better.
The universe is trying to tell us something.
Yeah, no doubt. Check, check. Hello, hello. Hello, hello. Okay, try that out. That should hopefully you guys can hear me. Okay, hopefully that's better.
Hopefully.
That's good. Okay, excellent, excellent. So what I was about to say is, I very deliberately avoid looking at other photography YouTube channels um, that nobody wants to hear. Spiros Nicole says. Oh my god.
Oh man.
uh, um,
People are gonna start taking her seriously.
um, I avoid them because if I don't, um, my brain immediately goes into comparison mode, and I start getting stressed out because I'm
Yep.
comparing me and my success and my channel status to theirs and their success and what they're doing in their channel status. And I don't like that because A, it's a stressor. B, it puts me into like this negative brain spiral of jealousy and stress that's not fair to me or
Right.
to them because they're different people on a different path doing similar things but different things.
Right.
That comparison is so hard to avoid sometimes, and it's something that you have to be careful for. So one of the things that I do to alleviate that sort of stress is even though I'm friends with some of these people on social media, I'll sometimes mute their feeds or whatever so that I don't see them because I don't want to cause those negative thought patterns that I can fall into if I do see them, even though they're just doing the thing that they're doing and there's nothing
Right.
wrong with it. And I bear them no ill will whatsoever. Like, I wish all of them all the success that they're achieving. It's just, a thought pattern that my brain triggers into when I see that stuff. So, like, that's one of the things that I do and have been doing for years, to keep that particular stressor out of my life.
Right. And I think where we forget is anything we see on social media is a highlight.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're comparing your struggles, which you are very well aware of because it's your life, to other people's highlights.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not fair, because if you're comparing success to success, it's very different. You're comparing struggle to struggle, it's very different. But you can't compare a struggle with a success and think it's the same thing. And we've talked about this in past shows where you don't know how much time someone has put into their business. They look like an overnight success, but in reality, they've spent the last 5 years working on whatever it is and seeing very little return, or having the same stressors and struggles as we do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
we have some comments on stress relief tactics that folks use. And Drew says, for me, my biggest thing is getting out of the office / workshop and getting on my bike to clear my head. He says, I also like to reach out to good friends in person. And Tim actually has a similar stress relief tactic. He likes to get on his dirt bike and go riding. He says it's something that absorbs all of your focus for just a while and helps with clearing your head.
that's really good.
Yeah.
I do yoga.
I used to do a lot of yoga and meditation. I should probably start doing that again.
It's so good for you.
It really is. I really do need to just work that back into my life again. My wife, she says, to help with stress, I make lists so I feel like I have more control. And I talk with a couple of people to come up with ideas to do things better / easier that I may not have thought of. Those are really, really excellent stress relief tactics. Like, really good. Hello to Jordan Chan.
One of the things that I had actually yesterday when I had talked to my therapist, and I think I told you about this because I sent you a screenshot.
Yeah.
One of the things she suggested, because I was talking to her about Monday and how I was so anxious, and it was just it was a little crazy. And she was like, one of the things to do is to remind yourself to take a breather. To remind yourself that you are going to be productive, you are going to be creative. And she actually forced me to put in reminders in my phone, and I have them scheduled at random times throughout the day for the next 30 days to pop up and tell me, like, let go, breathe, get up and walk, and then affirmations like, I am productive, I am capable, I am creative. And then the very last one is all is well. And that's typically scheduled at right around the time where I'm starting to wind down for bed. My phone will pop up and remind me that everything's fine. And it sounds really silly, but we need those reminders. Because it's so easy to get sucked into the negative and to concentrate on the negative versus looking at all the things that are going right.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, I actually, on your prompting, I put some of those same reminders into my phone to do the same thing. And that is another way that people don't often think about that we can actually leverage for ourselves, right? As much as technology brings stress into our lives, like we were just talking about, seeing everybody else's highlights on social media and whatever else it is, you can also leverage these different technologies to try to relieve that stress for you. And that's a really wonderful example of doing that. Another one is looking at apps that can help you create the habits that you want to create, like meditation as an example, right? Like I should probably download a meditation timer and set up a reminder, on a daily basis to trigger that habit and try to build that back into my life.
That just reminded me, I got an email today from the app that I use because they charged me again. And since I've gotten a new phone, I haven't put it on here. And I was like, oh, yeah.
I should do that. Right. Nicole does 5 a.m. high intensity interval training. That's another great thing is exercising. One of the themes here is obviously like stepping away from the thing that is causing you the stress, whether it's like a job that you're doing or just the environment and the thoughts that you're in, and engaging in a different sort of activity to take your mind off of whatever it is that your mind is on and put it somewhere else and just let that stuff go. So there are obviously like a million different ways that a person could approach that. One of the ways that I've always done that in my life is to read, to escape into fiction. Uh, I if I get sucked into a good book, like the whole world quite literally melts away, and I
Right.
forget about everything and everyone, and just it's great. It frees my mind. Um,
You say that, and what it makes me think of, and like if anyone agrees with this or doesn't agree with it, let me know. It This whole idea, I think that now having or let me restart that. Living in a society where self-employed and entrepreneurship and all this is so popular and so like encouraged. I keep, hearing this word. I hate the word hustle because
uh
we have glorified hustling and being busy to the point
Work, work,
of,
work, 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 work.
yep, you feel guilty for disconnecting, and therefore now you're spiraling into this like it's like, okay, you're working but like it's stressing you out, but then if you take some time off you start feeling guilty for taking time off because you're not hustling, and if you're not hustling then you're not going to be successful, so let's get back to work, and it just triggers into this spiral of glorified busyness that's unproductive
Hmm.
and stressful, which then causes anxiety and depression. Like, why do we see these numbers going up? And while anxiety and depression have always existed and everyone is prone to it, whether you have like the genetic predisposition for it, anxiety is triggered by stress. It's like I think of it as an allergic reaction, like an internal allergic reaction that your
Hmm.
body's trying to tell you to slow down, but we ignore it. Just
Right.
like I avoid going to the doctor, we ignore listening to our bodies. But if we ignore it long enough, it's going to land us in the hospital or worse.
Right.
And so I think one of the best things to do is pick like two or three things that you are going to get done that day, put them on a to-do list, and once you're done with them, go read, go do yoga, go do something that is completely unrelated to work and just enjoy. Because what's the point of working and being successful if we don't enjoy our life?
Yeah, yeah, very. That's so very true, and we have to, because we're our own bosses in this situation. We have the responsibility to make sure that we take that time for ourselves.
Right.
When you're in an employee-employer relationship, like you're at a job, like you said before, Zara, there's a prescribed amount of time that you work. You get a prescribed amount of vacation and or other days off, and that's like built into the job.
Right.
And for better or for worse, like in the United States, obviously compared to other countries, we're fucking awful with the amount of time off that we give people, but it's still built into our jobs.
Right.
When you're working on your own, you've got to build that in for yourself. Otherwise, you'll find yourself just working all of the time. And I've been bad at building that in. Like I've been bad at it. My wife commented, and this is true. She said, I find that I have to come down to the studio and remind Spiros to take a break. And she said, we've tried doing schedule of working on a task for so long and then taking a break, but I believe it's gone to the wayside. And it has. And it's gone to the wayside because of that hustle mentality. Even though I don't like it either, I'll fall into it when I'm
Yep.
working and I want to try to get to a certain point and accomplish a certain amount of stuff. And I just think, I'll just keep going, because if I keep going, I'm in my groove and I'll get it done.
Right.
And I do, like, I'll get it done, but then I'll also have days like Monday where I'm stressed as fuck because of an accumulation of all of that pressure I'm putting on myself.
Right. Tim just made a comment that it's hard to step away when you work from home, and I 100% agree because like just in
Mm-hmm.
the last show we were talking about how like you're always thinking about it, right? You're always thinking about work. And I am guilty of this. Like, this is what causes me the most amount of stress, is that like, my brain doesn't turn off.
Mm-hmm.
And so I try to be intentional with it, but I also try to, so like, I'll always have a notebook with me. And if like I'm at the park playing with my kid and an idea pops up into my head, I'll write it down and then I leave it and then I'll go
Mm-hmm.
back to it.
Mm-hmm.
So I try to be, but yeah, you are always on call. You just have to make that decision. One of the things that I've done in the past, and we're going to do it again this year, is I take once every 6 months, I try to take a vacation somewhere where I can turn off my phone. I turn off my laptop. I usually don't even take it with me. And I intentionally do not work. So I'll
Mm-hmm.
sit there and I'll read a book, I'll drink, and it's really hard for me to do that. It's really, really hard for me to like not work. But I know if I don't do that, if I don't take that time off and not work, I am just going to be burnt out. As much as I won't admit it, I am going to start getting very, very burnt out.
Right. Right. One of the things that does help me in a positive and a negative way with this working sort of setup is that my studio is my office. It is my workspace. It is where I go to work. And I think designating a space where you do that and trying for the most part to keep your work focused in that space when you work from home makes it easier to leave the space and leave work when you leave that space. So like when I do walk out of the studio, most of the time, I'm either taking a break for something to whatever, go to the bathroom or get some water or something, or like I'm done, and so I leave the studio and I'm done working. the
Right.
The problem, as Kim mentioned, is that I'll come down here in the morning and I don't leave until 8 o'clock at night or something. Uh,
Right.
so I need to schedule my lunch, all of these other things, and actually get out of here rather than sitting in front of my desk and eating and editing and whatever I'm doing.
Right. I do. So when we built this house, I wasn't going to put these doors that are behind me
Mm-hmm.
on the office. And that was one of the things that I was like, oh man, if I don't put those doors, it's constantly open. So as silly as it is, I mean, they're French doors you can see in here. But when I'm done for the night, I
Mm-hmm.
actually close the doors and walk out.
Yeah. Yep.
And that's it. Like, and the other thing was that this office is like kind of like on the side of the house. And so it's separate from all the rest. And I was like, that separation is actually really nice. Like, I have this hallway with the office and the bathroom. And if I'm here, I'm working and I can put the gate up so that the dogs and the child don't come over here.
Mm-hmm.
But like, once I am outside of the office area, I try to not work. It doesn't happen all the time. I still drag
Right.
my laptop into the kitchen
Yep.
or into bed, but I try to keep it contained to this or the studio that's outside of the house.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep.
So,
Yeah, Drew says I have the same thing with my office. That has helped me a huge amount, and being able to close the door when I'm done. Yeah, that makes a huge, huge difference. And Tim says you make a good point about stepping away. Problem with working at home is that you can't necessarily get away. Added stress comes from a work phone too, always having to answer that. Yeah, that's hard when you have like a work phone and you have a responsibility to be on call. And that's something that's unfortunately there's not much you can do about that other than
right.
trying to manage that as part of your life as best as you can.
One of the comments on that point on, I think it was like on actually my Facebook from my friend Darcy, was that she schedules days off. Like, she has a set day off that she tries not to work. And she was like, well, yeah, of course I'll sneak a look at my email, but I try to schedule other activities on that day so that I'm busy.
Mm-hmm.
So it keeps me from looking at my phone.
Mm-hmm.
And that was something that her and I had discussed a long time ago when my daughter was brand new. And I tried to do on Mondays, I would try to, okay, we're going to go to story time and then we're going to go to, the mall, or we're going to go have breakfast. And so I would try to intentionally schedule things so that I am not sitting around watching her, roll around on the floor and feeling like I'm wasting my time and not working.
Right.
And it's something I should get better at doing again, because in the past couple of months, I've definitely, I'll have her eating breakfast and answering emails at the same time, and that's doing a disservice for both of us.
Mm-hmm. So,
So,
so here are a couple of I think actionable tips that people can take and use. Then, this is something that I'm going to do myself. Number one, like you just said, actually schedule yourself your days off, day or days, however much time you can give yourself, however much once a week, at least 2 days a week would be great, right? Like the weekend is an idea that we all love. So schedule yourself your days off and make those days non-work days. If you got to be on call or whatever, that's part of it. Fine, but schedule those days off. The other thing you can do is work with. You could try this out. This doesn't always work for all people, but there's this idea called Pomodoro, where you do exactly what Kim mentioned in the comments. Work for a period of time, then take a short break. Then work for another period of time, then take another short break. And the timer is just built. It's super simple, but at the same time, it's built to just remind you of that pattern and cycle. You start it and you designate what's the work period, what's the break period, right? So maybe it's 60 minutes of work, 10 minutes of break. Right? And then you start it at the beginning of your day, and when the timer goes off, you put down what you're doing, you take your 10-minute break, do whatever, browse Facebook or Instagram, or go get a glass of wine, or do 10 minutes worth of yoga or meditate or
right.
whatever, And then when that timer goes off again, come back into it, and you'll be refreshed, and you'll have taken that little bit of a brain break, which can help lower those stress levels that may be building throughout the day, because we're in that work, got to get it done mentality.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that's a really good point. And on that same, I don't know if these two are related or not, but my dad used to tell me that. So when he was in grad school, he did this it's like an alternate sleep cycle,
Okay.
where he would, be up for like 3 to 4 hour periods, and then he would take like a 35-40 minute nap.
Mm-hmm.
And then he'd wake up and be up for 3 hours or whatever, and then another 45-minute nap. And he claims that he was way more productive and way more successful. And there is some research showing like the different patterns of sleep. I think the only problem with that from like a psychological standpoint is that you never get into that like REM sleep, so you're not in that
Right.
deep sleep.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm assuming at some point you'd still get burnt out.
Right.
But that's how he got through grad school, was through these like cat naps between work. So it's almost like you're working for 2 hours and then you take a little nap. You're working for another 2 hours, you take a little nap. And then somehow it worked. I'm not 100% sure how it worked, but
Right. Yeah, I can imagine. I can see how that would work. I can imagine it would be difficult to sort of get yourself into that pattern initially, but once you had established it, I could see how that could really get you through, because you're
Right.
basically constantly micro refreshing yourself rather
Right.
than like taking this huge chunk of time as like, this is my downtime. This is my literally sleep and recharge time. My wife said, and this is a really, really, really excellent tip. Another thing to do is realize what time of day you work the best, and then work during that time period.
Yeah.
She's really good at this, because like she knows she's basically done between like 2 and 4, and that's her nap time. That's literally her nap time. And her body is so tuned to her own cycle that she doesn't even have to look at a clock. She's like, it's getting close to 2 o'clock, time for my nap, and sure enough, it's like 1:55 when she says that or whatever.
Right.
And it's like yeah, you just you know that, and I'm gonna start using a Pomodoro timer again, to just have those break reminders in there, and get some meditation and yoga in with those breaks, and see how that feels and refreshes me. But honestly, with as tired and stressed as I've been feeling lately, I'm feeling like I might actually start napping, which is a thing that I've never done regularly before in my life.
Yeah, napping is one of those things where I can't do. Like if I go down for a nap, I am down.
See,
For like I'm useless afterwards.
that's always been my problem, is it wrecks it literally like wrecks my day. I'll wake up from a nap and I'm like groggy. I have no idea. It's like it's almost like I don't even know that the world exists, and
Right.
I don't understand what day it is, and I'm like, oh, I'm just like non-functioning. So for me, like if I'm going to do that, it would have to be like your dad was doing, 30, 45 minutes max.
Right.
And then I'm up and back at it. Because if I get into anything deeper than that, it's gonna wreck me for the day.
Yep. And that's why it's so funny that you say that, because now my dad, if he naps like on weekends,
Mm-hmm.
if he lays down and naps, he's done. Like he is done for the day. And he'll always say, he'll be like, "Oh, just, wake me up in 15 minutes and we'll try."
And
And he's
he's
like,
just dead to the
"Nope,
world.
nope." And then, 2, 3 hours later, he'll wake up and he's like, "Well, why didn't you guys wake me up?" It's like, "We tried.
And you were like,
You wouldn't wake up."
ah.
Yep. And then he's
Right.
groggy for the rest of the day.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, like it makes it really interesting how our brains work. And I
Yeah.
think taking breaks is definitely a good idea, and scheduling those breaks, and stop like believing that if you don't work for 10 minutes that the world is going to end. Like
Yeah.
it's not.
That mentality is such a huge and pervasive problem in the United States, particularly. The like you said, the hustle culture, and then just the general work culture in general. It's always like do more, do more, do more, do more, do more,
Yep.
and I think as we're trying to take control of our work lives, we have to remember, we remember that the reason we wanted to do that was to make our lives better.
Right. And it's almost like a vicious cycle that
Mm-hmm.
excuse me, it goes back into like, okay, we started being self-employed in order to have more time, in order to have better balance. But in reality, we created this monster
Mm-hmm.
where we can't take time off because we feel guilty. It's almost like the mom guilt, where you have kids, and then because you have to work, or because you're not doing things exactly like everyone else is doing, you feel guilty. And you have to realize that it's okay for you to do things on your own terms,
Right.
and prioritize different things on different days. Like some days you'll succeed in one area, and inevitably that means you're failing in another, or vice versa. You're succeeding in this area and you're failing in this, and that's okay. Like it's okay to not get everything done every day.
Yeah,
And I
and
should really listen to what I say.
yeah, that reminds me of something I heard. There's a guy named CGP Grey. That's his handle, so to speak. He makes YouTube videos. He does podcasts, and I was listening to a podcast of his. He was talking about this very concept and this idea that if you think of like your energy, your capability to do things as a light bulb, or a meter, when you have 0 to 100, right? And you have areas of your life that you have to focus on. Okay, you have work, you have health, and then you have like relationships and fun time and downtime, personal life, whatever we want to call it. Like those are sort of like the three broad categories of a person's life, right? And there are going to be times when you're giving work like 100%, and you're giving health and everything else like 0%. And it's
Right.
okay to do that, right? Like that is, it's not like it's a bad thing to work hard and to hustle. We're not saying that, but rather
And we're also not saying sit on your butt and assume things are going to fall into your lap.
exactly, right? Like part of getting through Monday for me was recognizing that this state of me working as hard as I'm working is a temporary state. One way or another, it's going to change, because either A, I'm going to stop making 2 videos a week and go back to 1 video a week, or B, what I hope is going to happen is making these 2 videos a week on the schedule that I'm doing is going to help push my growth in business up to another level. And then I'll be able to set it up in a way where making 2 videos a week isn't just all me all the time.
Right.
So there you can look at the amount of things that you have to manage in your life and how much energy you're giving to them, and sort of turn those dials and adjust those dials as is necessary, right? Like if you have a big job or you have a big goal you want to achieve with your business, and that means turning that work dial up to 100 for a period of time, it's okay to do that. Just remember to turn it down and
Right.
turn those other
Balance.
dials back up.
I think a lot of people think when they hear the word balance is that it
That's
has to
another
be all
idea that I hate.
within the idea of balance. Yeah, because it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't exist. And I think people are like, oh, well, your whole day has to be balanced.
Yeah.
Well, no, you can have periods of, okay, the next week is going to be really incredibly busy because I have to do, all these things. Okay, but because I know this week's going to be busy, how about we take 2, 3 days the next week and make sure we intentionally are slowing down?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think that's a better, at least for me, that's a better like understanding of the balance that like, yes, you are going to fail in some areas, you're going to succeed in others. Let's try to make those failures and successes as intentional as possible for the greater good or for whatever goal we're trying to achieve versus being stressed that, oh, today I didn't take a nap, or, oh, today, like, I didn't get to my laundry, or today I didn't answer emails back.
Yeah, yeah. For me, the idea of balance is trying to understand what I need at that time and putting my energy into that appropriately. And I fail at that a lot, but I still try to direct my energy to the right place at the right time. And that's what I think for me balance is, rather than thinking, oh, my day, like you said, my day perfectly has to contain X amount of work, Y amount of downtime, Z amount of exercise,
Right.
Y amount of this or whatever. Like, because that's just, it's like those whatever Cosmo articles or things that you see on the internet. If you just do this simple thing for 5 minutes every day, your life will be absolutely amazing. And if you add up all the simple things that take 5 minutes, you're not going to do anything except 5 minute simple things that are supposed to make your
Right.
life better, right? Because it's just stupid bullshit, you know. But if you understand your own needs and your own where you need to direct your energy, then you create balance by putting your energy where it needs to go. So that's what's helped for me. Jordan says this is really, 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 really good point. Diet plays a big role. Changing what I consume made a massive change. I don't need naps anymore and generally am more productive. Also, cooking is an escape and a de-stressor for me.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think a lot of us forget
Yep.
how important diet is because that's one of the things, right?
Oh, I think we lost Zara here. She froze up on us.
And the seizures were caused by what she was eating. So once she cleaned up her diet, her seizures stopped,
Mm-hmm.
which is crazy to me. But yeah, watch what you're eating. Like, we are so prone to eating a bunch of fast food. We are so prone to eating so many processed things. And I'm guilty of this because I'm working all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore, like, when it comes to dinner time, I'm like, we're just going to order a pizza, or, oh, we'll just go get McDonald's or whatever it is. Our go-to is Chick-fil-A, which I think is maybe a little better, but that's not really good for your gut or
Mm-hmm.
for your wallet.
Right, right, right. Yeah. Yeah, it's been a tremendous help. Prior to Kim leaving the library, I did most of the cooking. And with her having left the library and being home, she's assumed more of the cooking role. And that's made it easier for me because that's a thing that I'm not having to worry about. So we ate okay prior. Through a lot of years where I was doing the cooking, we actually ate really good. But then, you fall off your wagon, and
Right.
I've been off the wagon for far longer than I'd like to admit. But we're back on that wagon, and Kim cooking has been tremendously helpful in achieving that. Another thing that I wanted to throw out there that I think maybe people don't realize is that releasing that energy is also a super productive way to deal with it. So I'll do this sometimes where I'm dealing with a lot of stress. I will quite literally throw a temper tantrum like a child. I do it, on my own where nobody else can see. Some people may hear because I have windows in my studio and I have neighbors and whatever. But if I feel all of that bad energy, that stress and that anger and whatever coming to a head inside of me, that I do that to release that energy out of me so that
Right.
I can come back and sit down and do the thing that I'm trying to do without that block in me trying to tear everything down. And it's hugely helpful. And I used to think that when I'd have outbursts, that it was bad. And outbursts can be bad. Obviously, if you direct your anger out in a negative fashion against other people or lash out in ways that are unproductive, that's clearly not good. I'm not advocating for that.
Right.
But for me, it's like stomping around, swearing, and screaming sometimes just to get the energy out of me and not direct it at anybody, just release it. And when I do
Yep.
that, I feel so much better.
It's really funny that you say that, and we have Jordan in the chat today because a couple of years ago, like I was just going through like a really hard season, and that was one of the things that Jordan told me to do because I remember like texting him one day, and I was like, I am just like so frustrated. I just need to like stomp my feet and punch things, and he was like, do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, what do you mean do it? And he goes, go like punch your pillow and scream. And I 100% did, and it is just like it's like crying, right?
Yeah.
Like when I get like I will get so frustrated that like my relief for that is just crying. Like it almost has to physically leave your body. Um, and there's nothing wrong with it. And I think there's actually, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jordan, if you're still in here, isn't there like some kind of like a Japanese or Chinese or some kind of an Asian like theory
Mm.
that talks about that,
Mm-hmm.
that this is actually something that you can do to help control your emotions, to help control your stress. Because think of like a bottle, right? Like if you have a bottle with pressure building in it, that pressure has to be released. Otherwise, like it's gonna blow. And like I always joke with my dad and I say, oh, like there's a Russian term for it, but it's pretty much like you're a bottled up fight that
Mm-hmm.
like he like keeps all these things inside and then he'll like blow up and like pick a fight with like any random person because he just needs that release. It's not
Yep.
necessarily they did anything wrong.
Mm-hmm.
It's that he needs that release, and I think it's helpful. So if that's what you need to do, hell, go scream.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. I don't have to do it as much as I used to, but I still do it. And like often, often it's when I'm trying to record a video and the video is going badly.
Mhm.
But it comes up in other places. But the hardest thing for me to understand when I finally came around to that realization was two things. It's number one. I think a lot of people, because of our society and our sort of socio normative attitudes, a lot of people think that feeling those sorts of negative emotions is bad. And I hate that idea because anger, stress, depression, whatever it is, all of those things are very real and valid emotions that we as human beings experience. And to try to say, oh, well, I shouldn't be angry because anger is bad, that's actually going to force you into different negative thought patterns that are just going to increase your anger and your stress. Right? But if you realize, oh, I'm feeling anger over something or stress or again, whatever the emotion is that you're trying to deal with, and I need to somehow take this emotion and this energy and direct it in a way and deal with it in a way that will allow me to continue to move on with what I'm trying to achieve. Then you can
Right.
do that, whatever way it is. And for again, for me, when I'm feeling that a tremendous stress and anger, it is to pitch a fit like a 2-year-old. I mean, that's probably what 2-year-olds are doing. They're quite literally like they're so overwhelmed with all
Yep.
the emotion and stuff they're feeling that the only way for they know how to deal with it is to pitch a fit, right?
Yep. And that's exactly what like my pediatrician and a couple of other, you know, oh my gosh, I'm professionals who work with children have told me
Mm-hmm.
is that at that age, it's like you're trying to communicate, you just don't know how. And therefore, like, the only way for you to relieve that frustration is to like scream and shout and stomp your feet. And even as adults, like, yes, we should be able to communicate and we should be able to manage our emotions a little better, but there are times where you can't. Like, your frustration gets to a point where it's almost like a mental block. Like, you're so frustrated, you're so stressed out that, like, until you relieve that mental block, you're not going to move forward.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we got about 4 minutes left here. I think this has been a really interesting and really worthwhile chat, because so much of this goes sort of swept under the rug, like you've said before, in the kind of hustle culture, and the get it done and be successful and be perfect on Instagram and Facebook. We wanted to kind of pull that curtain back a little bit and just share the experience that we know everybody's experiencing, right? I mean, we all
Right.
deal with this stuff.
And that's the thing, like, we all deal with it, but we all feel guilty about sharing it. And like I said, there's no need to like constantly, because you do have, I'm sure everyone has that one friend that, like, when you get a text from them or you get a message from them or your phone rings and you see their name and you're like,
Oh, yep,
oh my
yep.
God,
Oh
what are they
no.
going to complain about
Right,
now?
right, right.
Because that's their pattern, right? Like, they don't want to celebrate any of their wins. They don't want to celebrate any of the positives in life. They just want to complain and have that whole like
Negative,
woe is
negative,
me
negative.
attitude. And I think we need to recognize that and not feel guilty about, like, I don't feel guilty when I text you or I text Nicole and say, okay, I'm
Right.
having a shitty day. This is what's going on, and just get it off my chest. Because sometimes just having that other person listen to it or you vocalizing it, you can start seeing a solution versus bottling it up and feeling guilty about feeling that way, which then feeds more into your anxiety, it feeds more into your stress, and all of a sudden you're on antidepressants, you're on anti-anxiety medication, and you're not doing anything else to fix it. Like, we need to just recognize what our triggers are and try to deal with those triggers and not feel guilty if you fail on some days. Like,
Right.
we all
Right.
fail. Like, this whole thing that we have to be perfect, like, none of us are perfect.
Yeah. We're human
So,
beings. It's an impossibility. The thing that I would probably just want to stress the most is, and it goes back to what you just said, right? Like that person who you see their message or phone call or whatever, and your heart immediately sinks because it's just going to be a storm of negativity.
yep.
Finding a way to express that so that it doesn't negatively affect other people is really important.
Right.
And that's not to say you can't talk to other people. Again, we referenced this a couple of times already. We had our little Monday pity party, and we were both definitely like complaining and whatnot.
Oh yeah.
But in doing so, we were basically commiserating on the same experience, which was a communal sort of thing. We also celebrate our successes and chat about
Right.
the positive things that are going on. So we're not just constantly bringing each other down. So having a person like that can help, but be careful of how you express that when you do decide to release it, because you don't want it to be something that becomes damaging to your life or your personal relationships. So be wary of that, but definitely find the right outlets to express that energy so that you can release it into the world and out of you, so you can relieve that stress and move on to the things you want to do.
Right. One of the things that I do, especially when I get really down, and I did this Monday night, is for every negative thing that I, write down and I will like journal it, I try to find two positives, or I try to twist that negative into some kind of a positive and actually write it down. Because when you write it down and then you read it, for some reason I feel like it just resonates better with people. And if you can accept and admit the negative, but then what is the good that comes out of it? Or what is something good that happened that day or yesterday, or that it's going to happen, that can offset and keep that balance going?
Right, right. Yep. Yeah, it reminds me of, I don't know where it came from, but some little like Sesame Street-ish kind of thing where it's like something the negative accentuate the positive. And I can't remember how it goes, but that little jingle popped right into my head as soon as you started saying that. It's like something like acknowledge the negative, accentuate the positive, or something like that.
Right.
You know.
Yeah, we don't need to ignore it because it exists, and ignoring
Exactly.
it isn't going to make it go away.
Right, right. It absolutely won't make it. And in fact, ignoring it will make it worse because that's that
Right.
bottling it up and increasing the pressure. Yeah. So Jordan says, "I am perfectly imperfect." That's so perfectly said.
Yep. We
Yeah.
all are.
Yep,
We're perfect in our own ways.
Yeah, my wife says I'm such a crier. Our friend Angela calls it goddess water. She is. She cries she cries at a lot of different things, and that's just a way that my wife releases her energy.
Right.
And Mike likes to go to the punching bag and get some hits in, and that calms him right down. Yeah, that's awesome. All right, so if you want to help relieve some of our stress, maybe you can buy some merch.
There you go. That's a good segue.
How's that for a segue? That's pretty good, right?
I think so.
If you wanted to help us out and support the show and support the stream and what we're doing, you could go to shp.photo/merch, bizmerch. I've got two different merch links. One for me. This is our joint biz merch. And pick up anything here that you see that you might find enjoyable. Zara, you got yourself the coffee mug.
I did.
Yeah, I
I think I have like a t-shirt and a hoodie coming, I think. I should check my mail more often.
Yeah, so there's stuff here you could get, all kinds of stuff that's sporting the Business Windup logo. It would certainly help us out if you did pick something up there. But if you can't, if it would stress your wallet, which is totally respectable, then just share the show. Share Zara's YouTube channel where we're going to try streaming this for a while. Share the Facebook group and invite people there. Let people know about these shows that we do. Let them know about the podcast, which you can find at shp.photo/podcast or on any podcast platform. Just search Business Windup and you'll find us there. All right, so cheers to stress and stress relief.
Yep.
Right.
And less stressful Mondays. How about that?
And less stressful Mondays. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. We, as always, appreciate your time that you come to spend with us and that we're able to be part of your business journey and hopefully help you out along the way. So cheers to that and cheers to all of you. Please have a wonderful, wonderful week.
See you guys.
See ya. Bye. This is where we do jazz hands so I can find stop buttons. Bye, everybody.